So this video is pretty long overdue. About a month ago, I set my PR FMC mean of 21.67, ranking me 6th in the world and 2nd in North America, and also crowning me the New England Champion. In this video, I'm going to be reconstructing those solves for you. This is by far one of my proudest cubing accomplishments, so please watch the video and enjoy. So on the first scramble, I started on green front EO on inverse. There are two bad edges here and here, which can be solved in 3 moves like this. F prime, U2, F. I then noticed that I'm already left with dr minus 44c, which is crazy. And what's even crazier is that this can be solved in 4 more moves to get to dr, with this column here and this column here. I just need to reposition this E layer edge here, or this one here, and then it's 1 more move to dr. And so I did U prime, B2, D2, L, and that is dr in 7 moves. And the crazy thing about this dr is that it's also 3/4 turns, and it's one of the best subsets because there are only 2 misoriented corners. So I knew that this was going to be pretty good, and there are 2 ways to do this dr. This is just the one I ended up going with. So I then switched to normal to see what else I could find. So after I switched back to normal, my first objective was to make a quarter turn of progress towards HTR, and that's what I did. I did D, and that reduces to HTR minus 44C, but the 2 quarter turn variant, which can be solved by doing R, U2, F2, R, or something like that. So that's either a 4 move trigger, or I can switch again and do 1 more move to reduce to 1 quarter turn. So I switched again. So after switching, I took a look at this dr with 1 quarter turn of progress already made, and I realized that it was going to be pretty hard to set up to the 4 move HTR trigger. So instead what I did was I decided to make 1 more quarter turn of progress on this side of the scramble and switch again to hopefully find a short HTR. And the way I did that was by doing B2 to set up these 2 corners, and then D to reduce to HTR minus 44C, but this time the 1 quarter turn variant. So after switching, this is what the cube looks like, and as you can see, it's pretty similar to that way we set up to dr earlier, just this time with HDR, with these 2 columns already made, just these E layer edges out of position. And this is just 3 more moves to HDR, which I know is going to be a 13 move HDR, which is crazy. That's by far the shortest I've had officially. And the way I got to HDR was I did B2, R2, U prime. I then put white and yellow on top and bottom because I wanted to get to a point where I either am leaving the slice unsolved or the entire cube is solved. So first I do F2 to make this square, and then L2 to make this 2x2x2, and then the cube looks very close to solved here, as you can see. I do R2, U2, R2, and then F2. It's just solved in... That's a 6 move finish from a 13 move HDR, which gives me a 19, which is my first official sub 20 and ranks me 11th in the world. I was super pumped to start a mean like this, but it also made me crazy nervous. So another crazy thing about this scramble is that I found another 19 off a completely different dr, off the same EO though. So this is what the EO looks like after switching from inverse to normal. And again, still you're left with dr minus 44C. I do L2 to make this column, U2, B2 to make this one, and also set up the E layer edges, D, U2, R. And that is dr in 9 moves, and it is also 3/4 turns. So then I switch to inverse. So this is what that 9 move dr looks like on inverse, and it's only 5 more moves to HDR from here, which is crazy. I did D prime to set up to HTR minus 6E4C, which is just 2 quarter turns away. And then I did L2 to set up the trigger. And then I believe I did D, L2, U, and that gets me to HTR in 14 moves. And if you look at the cube, it's like basically solved. It's 1 more move to 2E2E, which would be 2E2E in 15. However, the insertion just gives the same thing, which is just F2, B2, R2, F2, B2, finish in 5 moves for another 19, which is just crazy. So on the second solve, I started on inverse as well, and I did EO on red front, and it was 4 moves, and there are 4 bad edges. 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. And the way I did EO was F, B2, D, L prime. After that, I switched back to the normal and started looking for ways to get to dr. I saw that B prime D gets you to dr minus 44C in 6 moves. I don't usually switch for 6-move DR minuses. However, this scramble looked really good, but it kind of sucked. There were a bunch of 4-move EOs on this scramble, so I was very misled thinking that the scramble was going to be great. However, none of them gave anything, and so midway through the attempt, I decided that I was just going to start brute forcing my way through all these 4-move EOs instead of just looking at 5-move EOs, which I probably should have done, but I started rigorously checking all my 4-move EOs, and this was like the only DR minus that gave something decent. So this is what that DR minus looks like on inverse now, and I can see a way to solve DR, but it's going to take another 7 moves, which means I'm going to have a 13-move DR, which isn't the greatest, but I guess at this point in the attempt, I was just hoping for anything. I was very panicked after starting with a 19 and already having an attempt that was going badly. I did F, D2 to make this column, L2, R2 to make this one, and then F, B2, L to set up my DR. Or sorry, F, B2, U, my bad. And looking at this DR, it is 1 quarter turn corners. However, it is 1 quarter turn 6E 4C, which takes at minimum 3 quarter turns to solve, but this was literally the only DR I had that had any sort of straightforward HTR solution. So with like 20 minutes left in the attempt, I just figured I had to go for it. So I notice here that if I do B prime, I get to HTR minus 4E, which is a 4-move trigger. And if I do a D2, that sets up to the trigger. So that's two moves, and then B, U2, D2, F prime gets me to HTR in 19 moves, which again is not good. I then put F and B on top and bottom because those are the layers I'm trying to solve. And if you do L2 to make this square, U2, and then R2 to solve this, F2, L2, it leaves E slice in 24 moves, which is not bad at all. So I'm just praying that I can solve this in 0-1 moves and get something passable and keep myself in the running for a PR mean. So now I harnessed to this spot in the skeleton. However, the way I found this insertion was actually just by doing a move replacement. So I do B prime D2 as normal, and then I'm looking at the cube and seeing that this can be solved by doing F, R2, L2, B, F2, and that only adds 1 more move to solve the whole cube, so that's a 25. But then I noticed that I have a B2, F2 here, that I have a B, F2 here, and so I think, oh, maybe this can be sliced down to a 24. And I look, and boom, it can be. So that gives me a 24, which isn't great. I average about 22 to 23, but on a scramble like this, I was happy to get a 24 and just keep myself in the running for a PR mean. So this is scramble 3. I needed a 24 for PR mean, and I really wanted to get a sub 22 mean and get myself back in top 10 in the world. So I was hoping for a 22 on this scramble. However, this scramble sucked. I think I only found 3 4-move EOs, and they were all bad. So at a certain point in the attempt, I just started trying to find 5-move EOs that used NIS, because all my linear 5-move EOs weren't giving anything. So I did red front EO, and there are 6 bad edges, and I've got 3 on this face. So if I do an L, I'll reduce to 4 bad edges, but when I switched, that sucked. So I figured, why not do B2 L prime? Yeah, I did L prime. So that leaves 2 bad edges remaining, which on this side of the scramble are here and here. So I could do this, but that EO sucked. So after doing B2 L prime, I switched to normal. So after switching to normal, this is what red front EO looks like. I end up doing R prime, U prime, R prime to solve EO in 3 more moves to give a 5-move EO. And then I also noticed that this is DR minus 44C, which is great. DR minus 44C in 5 moves, not bad at all. So I solve it like this, D2, L2 to make this column, F2, B2 to solve this column, and then D, U2, F prime. And that gives me a 12-move 3/4 turn DR, which really isn't that great, but at this point in the attempt, I had a 12-move 1/4 turn DR that wasn't giving anything, another 12 plus 3, and now this 12 plus 3. So after this, I switched to make a 1/4 turn of progress. So after I switched, I see here that if I do a D, it'll reduce to HTR minus 2E4C, and that's, in my opinion, the best HDR case, and it's 2 quarter turns. And here, I can't do that, sorry. If I do it like this, that gives me a 16 move HDR, or sorry, a 17 move HDR, but it wasn't any good, so I switched. So going back to the normal, this is what it looks like, and it's already completely set up to the HDR trigger. If I do D, R2D, that just completely solves HDR. So that's a 16 move HDR, which is really good, and I'm hoping I can get to leave slice in not a lot of moves. So looking at this 16 move HDR, I see that if I do a B2, it gives me E slice plus 2E2E and 17. However, I know that if I do B2, R2, F2, R2, B2, L2, that'll solve the 2E2E, and it's a 6-2, so that gives slice in 21 moves. So it's crazy that this 12 move 3/4 turn DR turned into 21 to slice. And since there are 3/4 turns, I figured that I can probably solve it in 0 or 1 moves and hopefully clutch up that sub 22 mean. So at this point, I'm just going to go through my entire moveset to leaving this slice and just widen random moves and hope that I can see an easy solution somewhere. So the first thing I tried actually was widening the first D move and then just going about my solution as normal. And when I get to the last spot in the skeleton, I see that if I just do D wide prime D2, it solves the cube. So that only adds 1 move to my solution, and it gives me a 22 for a 2167 mean, putting me 6th in the world and 2nd in North America. So looking back on these solves, first of all, I'm really proud to finally get an official sub 20, and then I'm super proud that I held my nerve after the 19. It was an incredibly nerve-wracking start, and it was pretty much all I could think about. I think the 22 is my favorite official FMC solve that I've done ever. I think that scramble was absolutely awful, and just for the sheer amount of solutions I checked, finding a 22 was really, really awesome. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's helped me get here. I'm super proud of this FMC journey I've been on, and I can't wait to continue it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.